France recently announced that they will be delivering AMX-10RCs to Ukraine. Since there has been a lot of discussion about the delivery and the vehicle itself, I thought I should jump into it myself. Now, let's get something out of the way first. AMX-10RC is not a tank. It's not a light tank, nor any other type of a tank. It is a reconnaissance vehicle, or as NATO classed it during the Cold War, a heavy armament combat vehicle. This designation comes from the 1989 document of the vehicle classification, which makes a clear distinction between battle tanks and other types of vehicles, among which are heavy armament combat vehicles, such as AMX-10RC. The main reason why it is not a tank is because it is not tracked, which makes a lot of difference. Tanks are meant to be able to cross terrains which are not traversable by wheeled vehicles, since the nature of warfare demands them to. AMX-10RC does not have to, it is a reconnaissance vehicle, it is meant to be fast, and wheels allow for such a thing. Not to mention that it was primarily designed for warfare in the desert environment, where it won't be stuck in mud. And for that it was excellent. A clear testament to that is how well it performed in Iraq during the Gulf War. I've seen claims about it being a tank destroyer floating around, and yeah, maybe back when it was designed it was good at taking out the Warsaw Pact tanks, which at the time were mostly T-55 and T-62 tanks, but by modern standards it is a far cry from a tank destroyer. First problem is the lack of the stabilized gun. This vehicle, to this day, even after the modernization process, has not received any form of gun stabilization, which is extremely bad, considering that mobility is one of its upsides. Having to stop the fire could prove to be a death sentence in some cases. Next problem is its gun. The gun is a 105mm gun, which might sound good at first, but it is not good. It is not good because it is not the NATO 105. It was a specific 105mm gun designed for this vehicle that is not compatible with the 105mm NATO ammunition. The ammunition it has access to is pretty old, and it is questionable if such ammunition can even penetrate old T-62M tanks being used in Ukraine, not to mention anything more modern, excluding of course a lucky shot to the side. But one good thing about the fact that it is not a NATO 105 is the fact that this gun actually has access to high explosive ammunition, which means that this vehicle can actually be pretty useful in an anti-infantry role. For those who did not watch my video on the M55S tank, because that tank uses a NATO 105mm gun, it does not have any HE projectile, hence why I'm bringing up the access to the HE as a big plus here. Now, the big question lies in what exact variant is France going to send to Ukraine. I couldn't manage to find any information on how many, if any, old AMX-10RCs are left in storage. French company Nexter has modernized 245 or 46 AMX-10RCs to the Rénové standard, which are currently being used by the French forces under the designation AMX-10RCR. These vehicles are meant to be replaced by the Jaguars in the near future, so it is possible that the upgraded vehicles will be sent. The most important thing about this upgrade is the fact that the vehicles have been, among other things, upgraded with thermals. Therefore, they can spot targets much better and can be far more useful in their intended role. The information about protection varies from the sources, but the most common I could find is the frontal 30mm AP protection, which is pretty decent for a light vehicle like this. But since the majority of armored vehicles are falling victims to artillery in this war, AMX-10RC might suffer quite a bit, since it doesn't even need to be hit directly by an artillery shell in order to be knocked out because of its light armor. This also includes HE-fired tank shells, both 115mm from T-62 and 125mm from the other tanks. Now, how many and what exact variant will be sent has not yet been disclosed. It is possible that they will send a low amount at first, look at how they are performing and decide what to do from there. It is possible that, because of its light armor and HE shells, Ukrainians might utilize this vehicle in an indirect fire role, but that is just me theorizing, since the vehicle is not that well suited for the Ukrainian terrain, especially considering that, by the timing, it might get delivered when the snow starts to melt, making it extremely hard to traverse the muddy terrain. Now, just because it isn't really a great vehicle does not mean it is a bad thing it is being sent. Quite the contrary, anything is better than nothing, and if used correctly, AMX-10RC can be useful. it's just that it is not as useful as some people make it out to be. That would be all. If you like my content, you can consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.